Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be discussing Burna Boy's latest album, which is titled I Told Them. Expectations were high for Burna's latest album as a consequence of Love Damini being such a celebrated and streamed album, with it being one of the most successful albums to have come out in recent times in the Afrobeats genre. Prior to the album's release, Burna Boy was interviewed by Zane Lowe, whereby he suggested that Afrobeats lacked substance as a genre. This led many fans to be curious as to which direction Burna Boy would go in terms of the sounds that he would use in this album. Prior to the album's release, there was a large diversity of sounds that came from the singles that Burna Boy released. For instance, Sittin on Top of the World had a very different soundscape to Big 7. So when we actually get into dissecting the album itself, this rap and R&B influenced sound is present throughout most of the album, yet there are instances in the album where there is an Afrobeats flavour to some of the instrumentals. In particular, songs like I Told Them, On Form and Giza have elements of Afrobeats production. Giza in particular has an amapiano flavour to it as a consequence of Seyi Vibez being on the song, with Modra production fueling much of these sounds. When discussing the use of hip-hop inspired production, we can look no further than Normal, which is the second track on the album. The use of 808 drum patterns on Normal is quite intriguing, as it's a sound that we've never truly heard Burna sing over before on his own project. Another instance of a song that has a more hip-hop centric style of production is City Boys, which is a very hard-hitting banger. What Burna manages to accomplish with these hip-hop sounding songs is a more dark and nocturnal style. These nocturnal songs are very hard-hitting, and therefore a song like City Boys is probably the biggest banger to have come from the tracklist. It's very easy to think of this song going really well in the clubs, for instance. In particular, it's very easy to envisage people stomping their feet as a consequence of the thumping drums that feature in the production. When we move into discussing the R&B side of the album, in terms of the production, it's clear that Sittin on Top of the World is the biggest example of this, with Burna choosing to sample Brandy's Top of the World to drive the sound of that song. When looking to pinpoint if these contributions to rap and R&B are interesting, I think the statement you can make is that they are interesting most of the time. However, there are instances where the R&B and rap contributions are not overly insightful from Burna Boy, to the point where you would probably get other artists in those genres that would make more interesting tracks with the same instrumentals or ideas. For example, Big 7 is a song that features very heavy synthy production, which you would primarily associate with, say, The Weeknd in recent times. And this song kind of feels out of place in the album as a result. In addition to this, Sittin on Top of the World is a song that kind of leans too much on the vocal sample from Brandy. Without this sample, you would kind of not return to the song much at all, in my opinion. As aforementioned though, songs like Normal and City Boys are very interesting, and there are certainly songs that will chart well and be in many people's rotations for the near future. Cheat on Me is also a refreshing song, as we get another instance of Burna and Dave collaborating on a song. Even if this song probably doesn't live up to their previous collaboration, which was obviously Location, it is still a good song to have them repeat. When further discussing the album's highlights, it's clear that songs like On Form and Giza are songs that stand out greatly. This gives us a nice opportunity to discuss the album's features, starting with Seyi Vibez. When we look at Seyi Vibez' performance on Giza, it's clear that he nearly carries the song, with him taking up 2/3 of the runtime. His typical off-kilter and high-energy style suits really well with the amapiano style production, and it means that he can provide a sound that's very different to anything else on the album. When we discuss Dave's performance on Cheat on Me, it's clear that he has really nice wordplay throughout the song, and it means that it's a very typical, well-written Dave verse. Another high-profile name to have made the feature list is 21 Savage. It's certainly a decent feature from 21, but it's nothing that we've not heard before when it comes to him flaunting his success or talking about the women that he's involved with. But overall, it's a cool feature to have had on the album for sure. When we talk about the Wu-Tang influence on the album, we have RZA, who has an interlude of sorts, which is not really discussing in much detail as it serves as an interlude. But the GZA's verse on the opening song is quite interesting, as it very much serves as a spoken word verse with no instrumental in the background. From the main tracklist itself, the final feature that we have to talk about is J. Cole. While Cole undeniably brings a strong flow and cadence, the lyrical miracle style that he kind of provides on the track doesn't particularly suit it, in my opinion. I think a singing and performance from an artist like Anderson .Paak would have fit much better on that sounding production. And while he's not on the main track list, as Taliban's 2 serves as a bonus track, I think Byron Messia's vocal style linked up well with Burna, as his auto-tune vocals sounded pretty nice on the track. When we try to dissect Burna's performance itself, it's clear that throughout the track list, his singing on this large variety of instrumentals is quite good, and it's quite interesting, and there's a lot of variety in terms of his vocal range on different songs. So overall, he keeps it very fresh, and yeah, I can't complain with that aspect of the album really. When you compare Burna's performance to the features that were on certain tracks, I think it's clear that Burna holds his own across the board. Perhaps the only example of a feature outshining him is Seyi Vibez on Giza, but perhaps that's a natural given how the track's instrumental is very much geared to his sound. So to round up, Burna's performance across the board was quite good. But when we tried and synthesize all this information from Burna's performance to the production and the features, we must try and gauge what the album's themes were. I think the core message that Burna's trying to get across in the album is him conveying the success that he's had personally and in his career, and how people listening to the album can take notes into how to perhaps gain success themselves. This also does double up as Burna flaunting his success, because he wants to kind of silence his critics by demonstrating how globally successful he is and how he's one of the main artists in the Afrobeats genre. So for instance, the Virgil interlude provides a lot of clarity in terms of like this blueprint for success that Burna's trying to provide. 12 Jewels serves as another track whereby Burna can convey through RZA certain ideas and mentalities that someone could use to become as successful as he is. However, there is an argument to be had that Burna comes across a bit arrogant when trying to convey this theme throughout the album. So for instance, on the album's cover, in this magazine style, it tells how Burna advises fans to not complain as a way of reaching the top. But on the outro track, Thanks, we hear Burna lament people back home who don't give him enough praise. So in many ways he comes across as a hypocrite here by complaining, even though he said to fans to not complain, you know. With this in mind, Thanks very much leaves a bitter taste in the mouth of many fans, as they're reminded of Burna's comments about Afrobeats as a genre. But I think overall, if you're gonna excuse possible arrogance on Burna's part, you would also argue on the other hand that if any other rapper or hip-hop artist made an album like this with themes like this, you probably wouldn't bat an eyelid in terms of trying to dissect them as arrogant or big-headed. So in this sense, the album does serve its purpose of being a bit of a flex and a bit kind of braggadocious in this sense, you know, which does add to the appeal of the album in my opinion. So when trying to give final thoughts and provide a bottom line of how good this Burna Boy album is, I think it's fair to say that there are many highlights in the track list and there are a few weaker tracks in the track list, but overall it's a good album. It's an album you can definitely throw on for a variety of vibes and occasions, and you'll definitely have songs that you'll take from it if you listen to the album from back to front. If you're looking to compare I Told Them to previous Burna albums at this early stage, you probably would concede that Burna does have stronger albums in his catalogue, but nevertheless, that's not to say that I Told Them is a bad album as such. I think you'd probably describe it as just a good album rather than a great or an incredible album that we've heard from him before. And so yeah, that pretty much wraps up today's video. I hope you enjoyed this review of Burna Boy's latest album. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comment section, as album reviews are always going to lead to a large diversity of opinions, so I'd be looking forward to hearing what you have to say in the comment section.